start with Jon and work through.
Okay, it doesn't matter to me. Hi, I'm Jon David. I've written the Morgalla books. I've written four of them total now. I've written the trilogy, and I guess the reason why I'm on this panel is because I've just written prequel to my trilogy, which kind of tells the origin of Morgalla, her first adventure, first dangers, and all that wonderful jazz. She's a demon who did not grow up, who was taken away from hell by her mentor and teacher Delilah, who's a dragon demon hybrid, and she raised her off-world. She kept taking her from place to place until she finally found a sanctuary where they could be alone. I'm going to start reading from one of the first chapters. Morgalla grew in size and strength and was fully grown by the time she was 12, still no more than 5 feet tall. Delilah became concerned. Delilah's red skin and Morgalla's orange stood out among the brown and green terrain. The Zanzur clan, with bright blue flesh, were also difficult to miss. The two demons kept a distance from the others, even though the child often enjoyed watching them meditate from afar. Their souls are peaceful, Morgalla noted. Delilah was quick to correct her. It makes them weak. But why? This environment, child, is soft and easy. They would not survive among their own people outside of this forest. Well, we need not fear them. Isn't that a good thing? Perhaps. With their weakness, I somehow feel infected by it. Delilah gave a sneer as she looked at him. Morgalla was confused, as with many things Delilah said. As time went on, neither of their attitudes towards the Zanzur changed. Deep within the forest, the monks chanted their morning prayers. Often their attention was diverted by the sound of metal clanging and echoing from high from the trees above. They knew it was the demon woman training her young apprentice. The monks didn't know why the pair had chosen their forest, but as long as they were peaceful and shed no blood, they could stay. Morgalla was too curious one morning after the chanting. Delilah had taken a nap in the trees, so the young demon girl took the opportunity and made her way to the souls below. She was unable to be stealthy because of her coloring. Morgalla snuck nearer and as quietly as she could, aware of where the souls around her. She spotted an adult kneeling on a wooden floor in the late morning mist. 2 young ones, a boy and a girl, accompanied him. If she had to guess, they were not much older than her. What were they doing? She had to know. The elder responded to a creak of wood glancing over his shoulder. All 3 pairs of eyes scanned the area until they saw the young demon girl's pale violet eyes looking back at them. Having been caught, she hid herself behind a large leaf. The elder appeared curious too. His focus jumped between the 2 young ones, then back to Morgalla. He motioned for her to approach. Through the peace of his soul and lack of fear, Morgalla knew she was not in danger, but she snuck up to him slowly, nevertheless. He reached out with a piece of white chalk and a large slab of wood, dark and flat. Morgalla noticed the 2 young ones had similar items. She accepted them, sniffing and even tasting the chalk. Blech! The young one snickered. As it went with many a morning after her sparring with one teacher, she would creep down to the other one. The elder looked at the work the 2 blue students were doing, approving of what he saw. Morgalla struggled to figure out problems that she was given with numbers. She scratched her head, sometimes counted on her fingers. She wrote down the answer and showed it to the elder. He looked and frowned, shaking his head. Morgalla returned the frown. She checked her work and rubbed the chalk off the board with her sleeve. She thought of the problem again, grunting out of frustration. One of the other students said something quietly to the other. They both snickered. Morgalla shot a glare of anger at them. Shh, the teacher said, and cast a watchful eye to the 2 youths. Morgalla pondered the situation some more and scribbled down something on the board. She showed it again to the teacher, who studied it and nodded in approval. Morgalla smiled. It was then that they heard a thump on the wooden platform where they were sitting. They noticed Delilah standing there, her golden eyes blazing at her young apprentice. So, this is what you've been doing after breakfast, young one? Morgalla smiled, showing her the hard work on the board to her mistress. Delilah frowned, though she managed to raise an eyebrow. Well, I suppose brains can be a useful weapon. Time passed each day as Delilah moved faster, pushing her student. That particular morning, Morgalla decided to block an oncoming attack with her sword as she was thrust back, landing hard on the wooden practice platform. Delilah frowned. Best you parry or even dodge an attack like that until you're strong enough to block it. Now you tell me, Morgalla groaned, her tailbone aching. Up! Give me a minute. Your opponent will not give you a minute. Delilah thrust forward, and Morgalla screamed, ducking out of the way. Are you trying to kill me? Your enemy will, that's for sure. They sparred some more, and finally Delilah finally disarmed her. Her sword, Hero, was tossed over the edge. Morgana stood motionless, frozen and not knowing what to do next. What are you waiting for? Delilah asked. What? I have no weapon. You are a weapon. Continue to fight. Delilah attacked again, although it was clear she was holding back. Morgana dodged, but without a weapon, her feet and hands would have to do. You're holding back, Delilah shouted, and continued the attack. Finally, Morgana swept her legs, and her teacher was on her back. Ha! Her teacher called out. Good. She was on her feet in an instant and continued to fight. Morgana leaped down to a large branch. Among the foliage, she clearly spotted her medallion hanging from a twig. She jumped down, and with the medal in her hand, it changed back into her sword. The change happened just in time as Delilah had cut the branch she was on, and her student was in free fall. Morgana was able to land on the next wooden platform, nearly crashing on the monks who ran away, fearing for their life. Delilah was quick on her heels and disarmed her student again. With a simple sweep of the leg, Morgana lost her footing and landed hard in the wood. She curled into a ball, nursing a bump on the back of her head. With the pain came anger. The young demon stared up at her mistress, who had neither a smile nor a frown on her face. There is no shame in falling, child. Morgana breathed the anger out of her heaving body, but Delilah still sensed the rage within her. There is shame, however, in remaining on the ground. Get up. Morgana heard the words and felt the influence of her teacher on her soul. Despite the pain on the back of her head, she got up. The sharp ache that stung through her body was soon gone, but her ego was still bruised. Morgana picked up her sword again, and the lesson continued. Delilah wasn't all business every minute of every day, though. Between lessons from her and the monks, the forest was Morgana's playground. Delilah often took her for flights through the trees and across the plains of Usteron. There were, however, places that she would not venture. Delilah forbade it. The rest of the Usta's domain is beyond that border, Delilah noted. The rest? The Zanzur live here in the forest, away from the other species. Out there, the war is raging. What war? Do not burden yourself with such questions, child. The remainder of the cosmos will open up to you when you are old enough. As Morgana grew older, horns grew from behind her ears, and soon she asked for a place of her own to live and sleep. Thankfully, there was another hut near Delilah's. After patching the holes in the roof, it became livable. With parchment and charcoal, Morgana posted drawings all over the walls. After a decorating had been done, it became a home. With her heart swelled with pride at her accomplishment, knowing it was hers. On this particular occasion, while admiring her work, she turned and saw Delilah standing in the doorway. Don't tell me you're going to say this is a waste of time, Morgana said, referring to her drawings. Delilah's golden eyes examined the room. Not entirely as long as her studies come first. Morgana rolled her eyes when her mentor turned her back. I saw that, child. More time passed and things became routine for the two of them. Then came the day that Morgana's life changed forever. One morning she rose from her hammock, the branches creaked as she rolled out of bed and landed on the wooden floor. The dreams were not violent but certainly intense, enough to make her break out in sweat. Her hut was tiny, barely enough room for one person. She walked to the curtain that served as a door and opened it. The morning light bathed her. The morning song indicated the wildlife had been awake for a while. She felt the chill and moisture of the morning as she stepped out onto her porch. Morgana checked the perch where Delilah usually slept, but didn't see her, not like her to be an early riser. She dressed in her day clothes and set out to find breakfast, and Delilah. As Morgana walked up the wooden bridges that spanned from tree to tree throughout the entire forest, she found a low-hanging branch and snatched a few guavas. The bright yellow fruit was her favorite, and she could have it for breakfast every day for the rest of her life. The Zanzur were awake as usual and going through their morning prayers and rituals. Morgana meandered through the wooden paths and bridges, coming across a group of them who had knelt to greet the morning sun. Morgana always found their peaceful ways intriguing, but she never got too close to them. Although the monks allowed her and Delilah to stay among them, she sensed a tiny sliver of mistrust for demonkind. She marveled at them, their tattooed blue skin bathed in morning sunlight contrast with their white clothes. Morgana, with her orange skin and dark clothing, snuck past as quietly as she could and looked for Delilah elsewhere. Morgana stood on a large branch and peered out to the community of the Zanzur. She took another bite of her guavo and focused on the massive forest. She heard chanting filling the trees with a pleasant sound as the morning sun rose higher. Morgana finally guessed where Delilah would be. Her soul was inside the chapel. She made her way down to the structure. The wood had elegant carvings all over it. Sneaking in through the darkened hallways, she heard voices at the end of the corridor. She concentrated and clearly heard Delilah and the high priest.
Nice.
So hi, I am Mackenzie Flohr. I am a young adult fantasy author. My first of the series is called The Right of Wands. A lot of readers had asked me about the character of Morton McKinnon, who is Myrta's father, and those who are familiar with the story are familiar that Martin has a big secret, and he doesn't want anybody to know about it, not even his son. Towards the middle of the book, Myrta starts figuring out that something is just not right. That somehow his dad has this huge secret. He has not told anybody about it, and he is upset that he has not been told why. So this origin story is about Morton, about some of the things that he went through prior to becoming to Averna. So University of Northampton, 1220 CE. As the door creaked open, Morton McKinnon, a man of average height, wearing a long royal blue robe over his long belted tunic, stepped into his science classroom where he had been busy preparing students for their apothecary exams. He smiled and lowered his short cream kappa when the door abruptly slammed behind him. Sorry, so sorry, Morton apologized to the room. He adjusted the front of his robe and tilted his head slightly back and forth. Sighing deeply, he began strutting down the aisle towards the podium centered in the front of the room. The scene reminded him of the inside of a church, rather than a prestigious classroom inside the University of Northampton. There were 4 long pews positioned in the front of the podium and 2 smaller ones off to the right. Each student sat at a bench and table with just enough room to have his or book or parchment before him. Between the sounds of his boots hitting the floor, he surveyed his students dressed in their long colored robes and various coifs and kappas as they finished taking their seats. He approached the podium, stepping onto a small riser, and opened his textbook to the chapter he'd be lecturing. As he was about to read the first paragraph to introduce the lesson, he stopped, feeling all eyes on him. He cleared his throat and began to read. Sorry, meant to read from a different chapter. He flipped through a few more pages, then skipped another chapter completely, before stopping and starting again. He could feel his heart racing. There was no way he could cover the topic based on what he knew. He stopped, reading abruptly, and looked up, noticing a student's hand raised in the air. Yes, Peter. Peter was a pale-faced boy with blonde hair and blue eyes. Professor, if I may, I was curious about why you intentionally skipped over a chapter in the book and was hoping we may have the opportunity to discuss it since it's an important part of our land's history. Morton ran his hands through his short brown hair. Well, I reckon it would be impossible to cover everything in the book, yes? Indeed, Professor. However, reckon this one shouldn't be passed over. Is that so? And what disease would this be, young man? The Shreya, Professor. Martin could feel his heart thump and skip a beat. He swallowed hard. Right. Yes, I agree. It would be daft and inappropriate to skip such a discussion. Even as he said the words, he wished he could skip the discussion. Even the wisest doctors didn't know enough about the Shreya to cure it. It was simply a story of gloom and tragedy. He cleared his throat again. What can you tell me about it? He asked the class. Morton observed several confused expressions from his students. Some looked like they were searching through their textbooks, hoping to find the answer quickly or appear busy to avoid getting called. Others just stared at each other with crinkled brows, uncertain of what to do next. There's no cure for it, Professor, chimed in Peter. If you become infected, you'll die. Is that so? Answered Morton. And what can you tell me about the symptoms and its origin? I don't know, Professor. Anyone? The class stared at him as if they were a herd of deer. He replied, the answer is unknown. Some people believe God sent the Shreya as a way of punishment for our ancestors' sins. However, when the disease ran viral through Rhodesia, Averna, and Lorena, records were lost. No one knows how many people contracted it or perished. Forgive me, Professor, are you saying it just sort of sorted itself out and vanished? Rubbish. Diseases are incapable of just appearing out of thin air. They aren't capable of performing magic, you know. Something would have caused the disease to lose its virulence. Immunity, for example, or Professor, do you believe the strider could someday come back? Well, yes, I suppose it could. And if it does, what do you reckon will happen then? Morton looked into the young man's face. He didn't want a vague answer. He wanted the truth. Morton wished his student had never brought up the topic. It only reminded him of a future he didn't want to face. Well, the result is inevitable. We'll die. Morton half laughed. But of course, I don't foresee that kind of scenario. I have complete confidence that any one of you in this room will be capable of conjuring up such a cure in the state of crisis. Now that's all for today. I have an urgent matter I must attend. I expect to see all of your parchments and how to correctly perform bloodletting first thing Monday. Class dismissed. Northampton Castle, 1220 CE. Professor McKinnon, you've arrived just in time. I take you are well. Please, have a seat, the mayor said, pointing. Thank you, Mayor. Your Eminence, Morton said as he took a seat beside Tiberius. Morton, I'd like to introduce you to Tiberius O'Brien, William spoke, gesturing. By King John's authorization, he has been appointed by myself and the rest of the council for a special mission to take place in Iverna. However, I believe the task in hand would look less conspicuous if His Eminence brought along with him a companion. Forgive me, Mayor, are you implying that in person should be me? Morton said, smiling between chuckles. When the mayor did not answer, his jaw dropped. With all due respect, my students, they have worked so hard this year to prepare for their medical exams. Certainly it would be in their best interest if I stayed for the remainder of the session. The mayor would have none of Morton's excuses. He decided to get right to the point. Correct me if I am wrong, Morton. You were born in Inferno, were you not? And then your family decided to relocate to Northampton in your teens? Yes, but Morton attempted to retort before he was interrupted by the mayor. Then I can think of no better candidate than you. I, chimed in Tiberius, and I have already begun establishing a home in the kingdom of Andalay. I can help you reestablish your life in the land of Iverna too. Find work, a woman, and perhaps even start a family, Tiberius said. Indeed, agreed William. Professor, you are young, handsome, already have more than an exceptional reputation, and may I add, are single. Ladies will be begging for you to court them, yearning to turn their dowry over to you. That may be so, but my students, calm yourself, Professor McKinnon. I foresaw this matter being a concern. I understand your hesitation to return to Iverna. I'm not waffling, Mayor, Morton interrupted. The mayor raised a hand. I've already sent a telegram to the Canova family. They possess a remarkable reputation in the craft and practice of apothecary. Just because one has a notable reputation does not mean one can teach, Morton uttered. I simply cannot agree to what you are both requesting. No, I refuse to return there. I can't! The decision is final, Professor McKinnon, whether you approve of it or not. By order of His Majesty, King John of Ethesia, you are to pack your bags and make way to Iverna. You cannot do this. The king doesn't have the faintest idea the level of torment I went through to earn my reputation back, or the dangers I will engage in by returning. Now, Morton, get a hold of yourself. Morton barely heard these words, as the specter of his past flashed across the eye of his mind. He could feel his heart pound and his body start to shake. The events of his right of wands were coming to pass, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. His future had already been written as if it was a fixed point in time. There was no longer a use to deny it. Eventually, he would have to return and comfort the very demons he had been running away from since he had been stripped of his magical powers. The end.
Okay, so I am Evan Heuker. I am the writer of the Warriors Legacy trilogy, and a lot of my in my books, there are mentions of different events and other things that have occurred within this universe. And the next one that I am currently working on is the dragon hunts. And during the dragon hunts, an event occurred that caused this huge fear to happen amongst the people to retaliate against the dragons who were meant to be protectors of the realm. And I do not have something written out due to the fact that my computer has taken a dump. But I do have the notes of this particular character who was at the forefront of this event that had occurred. So this character, his name is Jawari. He is an elite guard of the Elder Dragons, and that is basically just the one step below the Elder Dragons. The Elder Dragons are the ones in charge of basically everything that happens with these creatures. And so, let's see, just to get, so the events of the Dragon Hunts happened between the First and the Second War, and Jawari, as an elite guard, they are tasked with they have to go around and basically keep track of the dragons of different realms. So each elite has their own sections that they basically have to take care of. But as Jawari goes around traveling, he meets an emerald elf by the name of Violet Everbloom. And the dragons are not meant to have relationships outside of the dragon court, just to keep things from getting complicated, whether it is like a love interest or just even friendships. Their tasks are not supposed to be set aside by those around it. But Jawari meets Violet Everbloom as she is out searching for a runaway animal from the royal stables. And as Jawari was he was going to eat this creature as she was out searching for it, because she is the one that's meant to stay in charge. She is the whole caretaker of the king's animals, everything that's within his area. But as Jawari was going to eat this creature, Violet stopped him, as he is a dragon. So Jawari was impressed by her bravery to protect this one creature from becoming his meal. So the two of them end up getting together, and Jawari helps escort Violet and the animal back to the kingdom, and the two of them end up sharing a long talk and a meal together. And he ends up just kind of like simply falling for her. They're not like trying to do anything together, just a meandering kind of talk sort of thing. And but another arising problem is amongst the dragon courts, the elders actually pair them together, dragons together as partners, just to keep the population up if anything were to happen or anything like that. They're meant to stay together. So Jawari has to keep all of this secret, but he still continues his rounds, and things start to get suspicious. And as he's out one of these times, the dragon hunts begin due to an event, because he didn't go to where he was supposed to. He was supposed to report on the dragon that was guarding this realm. Well, it's reported that this dragon destroys this entire village just out of nowhere for no reason, and there's all this speculation that's going on. And when Jawari goes to investigate, everybody is already has become afraid of these dragons that were supposed to be meant to be protectors of the realms. And dragons themselves aren't allowed, I guess that's the word I'll use, they're not allowed to kill another intellectual being. So sure, beasts and critters and things like that are fine, but if it's some sort of civilization that's established and all that, they're not supposed to kill. So when the folk retaliate against him, he's not allowed to fight back. And these folks were their fears were heightened by somebody that was very suspicious, very mysterious. They don't know what was going on. And this person gives them weapons that are enhanced with black magic, so they can pierce the dragon scales. So he becomes injured, and as he flees, he ends up being saved by someone by the name of Yalemore, which is actually met in the third book. You find out later. And Yalemore begins to nurse him take care of them, you know, even though she knows that dragons are at this point becoming something that should not be left alive. So she takes care of them while everything is occurring, and through it all, going through the story that I am currently writing right now, and like I said, unfortunately, I really wish I had it here, but my technology is
The
amazing.
cloud, young man. To the cloud.
I have two devices. I have a laptop and a desktop. So I don't have anything else to share it with, unfortunately. But it goes through, and as Jawari's get nursed back together, and the speculations happen, the elders, there's 3 elders, are trying to discern what has happened, and one of them actually goes and finds that he's being nursed back to health, and they also begin to suspect that he has fallen for the one that's nursing him back to health, which he hasn't, but he also leads on to that because he doesn't want the elders finding out about Violet. So there's a whole, not necessarily a love triangle, but then Jawari's partner also finds out about this. So he's mixed in with 3 different women in different ways, and the only one that has actually at this point has no idea what's going on is Violet, because she hasn't seen him. So she just knows that he's gone and that he's missing. And I kind of want to talk about more, but I don't, because I don't want to do spoilers for the next book, because I know how it's going to end. I know how it goes through. But and it is told in the 3rd book, so I guess I can kind of bring this up. Yalemoor has ended up, through all this debacle and everything that has happened, since she was such a great caretaker for Jawari, through it all, she is actually gifted the ability to become a dragon. You know, it goes through this whole process, and only the elders can make this happen. So you do find Yalemoor in the 3rd book, and she has been gifted these for being such
So that's
good.
kind of the kernel of the backstory is how Gilmore got this power.
Yes. So yeah. So but yeah, that's what I have.
I'm Nancy Northcott. If you've seen me on any other panels, you know I write several different things. That today I'm going to read from my Light Mage Wars Protectors Paranormal Romances, which are about mages fighting ghouls and demons in South Georgia near the Okefenokee Swamp. However, I'm going to read from the only book in the series that does not involve the Okefenokee Swamp. It's set in Macon, Georgia, and it's a prequel to the entire series. Its heroine is Caroline Dare, and this is a look at how, a little bit of how, and mostly why Caroline became kick-ass. It's called Lost. There were so many people, so much noise. Kara's magic let her distinguish the vague outlines of people's bodies, but no more. She couldn't pick her 6th grade classmates out of the mob of people crowding the mall in the pre-Christmas rush. Jill, she called. Sammy? Jill and Sammy were supposed to stay with her, make sure she got back to the bus. No answer. With all the holiday music coming over the speaker system, plus the chaos of conversations all around, she would be lucky if her voice carried more than 10 feet. Panic clawed at her throat. Her fingers tightened on her white cane. Where was the class? Why had no one missed her? Someone's bag bumped her leg. A man's absent-minded sorry drifted back to her. She jumped aside and someone else said, "Watch it, kid." Watch it? How? Didn't they see her cane? Were they too distracted to notice it? Tears welled in her eyes. Where was everyone? Think, Caroline, you can do this. Her big brother, Griffin, had often said that to her. He always encouraged her to stretch herself, to learn new skills. Griff would be disappointed if she panicked. It was just a mall, after all. But her heart pounded, and the noise and life energy bombarding her from all sides made it so hard to think. Kara blinked to clear her stinging eyes. Someone else bumped her. She let out a shocked squeak as she dodged, only to run into the fence around the decorations in the middle of the aisle. The snowman song was playing around her. Fighting to focus, she gripped the wooden fencing with her free hand. Absently, she noted that it was white, the color coming to her through her sense of touch. If the big island of decorations was in front of her, there were stores behind her. Slowly, keeping her hand on the barrier, she turned around. People rushed to and fro, their energy crackling in the air. At age 11, she had limited ability to sense their moods from their energy, but their collective impatience was so intense that she couldn't mistake it. How was she going to get through them and into the nearest store? Using her cane in this crowd would trip people. Someone stopped beside her. "Are you lost, honey?" a woman asked. "Come with me and we'll—" No! Strangers were not to be trusted. Her dad had drilled that into her and Griff since they were small. "My mom, she's right over there." Carol pointed at random. Hoping the woman was distracted, she bolted straight ahead. Several people made rude comments as she pushed past them, but then she was clear, probably near a storefront. Carefully, she reached out with one hand and touched glass. She set her cane's tip near the bottom of the wall and stayed close to it, heading forward until the wall stopped, likely for a store opening. Please let it be a store opening. She turned right into a wide space somewhat less crowded than the walkway behind her. "Can I help you?" a man asked. I need the cashier." She had to remember which way was out. Couldn't let someone turn her around, trick her. "I'll show you." A hand grasped her shoulder. Fear surged into her throat. She twisted free. "No, let go." "I'm only trying to help," the man said. "Don't touch me!" Her voice rose to a shriek. She couldn't stop it. How could she know who? "I'm the manager," a woman's voice said. "What's the problem here?" "I need to be by the cash register," Caro insisted, her voice shaking. Only there could she be sure she was with an employee. "Please." "Okay," the woman said. "I'll keep talking and you follow me." She led Caro farther into the store and up to a counter. "If you put your hand out," the woman said, "you can feel the cash register." Caro did as she suggested, and tears of relief welled in her eyes. "I'm lost," she said. "I got separated from my class, and I need you to call my mother." Safe at home again, Caro went down the basement stairs. She couldn't sit in the kitchen and pretend everything was normal, as Mom was trying to do. This was Caro's space and Griff's, their sanctuary. Maybe she could put in a movie and forget this awful day. A security guard had tried to get her to wait in the manager's office, and she'd screamed at him. After that, they left her alone until Mom arrived. Mom had been understanding and had even said Caro had done well. But she'd also called Dad, who then had what Mom called a lawyerly come-to-Jesus meeting with the school. Going to class tomorrow would be humiliating. Everyone would be reminded that she was blind, that she couldn't walk through a busy mall by herself. At the bottom of the stairs, she turned right. The cane wasn't necessary in these familiar surroundings. The TV was straight ahead. She could put in a movie, listen to something distracting. Instead, not sure why, she turned left to the workout area Griff used. At 13, he tried to keep in shape for various sports he played. She didn't know this area especially well, so she had to grope for the heavy bag that hung suspended from the rafters. When she touched it, bitterness welled inside her. There would be no sports for her. She couldn't hit, catch, or kick a ball she couldn't see. A sob pushed into her throat. She drew back a fist and hit the bag. The punch wasn't much, but at least it connected. She could do this anyway. She hit it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, as tears ran down her face. "Hey," Griff said behind her. "Hey, sis, easy." She refused to face him. He reached around her to steady the bag, and Caro stood frozen. He would be so ashamed of her for being so scared. The silence stretched for what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds. Then Griff spoke. His voice was relaxed as always, even though it cracked, as it so often did these days. "If you're going to hit something," he said, "hit like you mean it. I'll show you how." "Yes," she replied straightly. "Teach me." She would do anything to never feel so helpless again.
Hi, I'm MK Schiller. I write contemporary romance, and I write all genres of it from, I guess not all genres, but from new adult to romantic suspense. My newest book just came out last month. It's available on Amazon. It's called The Scars Between Us, and it's a dark romance, if you like that, but it's about a girl whose mother dies. And she says one of her last words, which she's out of it because she's on a lot of medication. She says, "I want you to take my ashes and spread them in this river in Lynx, Texas, with Aiden Sheffield. There's just one problem. Who the hell is Aiden Sheffield and why Lynx, Texas?" She's never heard of him. She finds some information when she's going through the house, and she finds Aiden Sheffield, and she thinks it's her mother's ex-lover or somebody she didn't know. And it turns out it's a former stepson from a former marriage that her mom had that she didn't know about. And her mom actually grew up in Lynx, Texas. So he agrees to go with her, but he's very reluctant and aloof. Um, but there's something more to him, and this is the chapter that kind of he's opening up to her. So I like to do things that have happened to me in my real life to try to make the dialogue believable, and I also try to connect characters through music, what their tastes are, and humor. So hopefully that comes through. Why do you hate Lynx, Emma? Seriously, you never answered me the other day. Aiden's expression remains calm, but his fingers tighten on the steering wheel. It's a small town. Everyone's in your business, and let's just say I wasn't a popular kid. That's hard to believe. In what school in America would Aiden not be the most popular kid? He's a modern day Greek god. Well, believe it. I didn't always look like this. I was a weakling, tall and skinny, with a complete loser. Imagine a beanpole with big ears. That was me. Are you joking? He holds his hand over his heart. Swear, I didn't start puffing up until I enlisted. What made you join? It's a long story. It's a long car ride. We have time. He's silent for so long, I expect it's the end of the subject. Then his deep, raspy voice fills in all the empty space between us. When I left home, I got as far away from Lynx as I could. Ended up in New York City, about as opposite from Lynx as you could get. What did you do in New York? He shrugs. I was screwing around, going nowhere fast. I didn't spend my time, I wasted it. I got a few odd jobs washing dishes and loading trucks at night. I found this poker game on the top floor of a seedy bar. I went a few times a week and had a nice run. They underestimated me because I was the youngest one at the table. Plus, they all thought I was a hit. Hell, I am a hit. But that doesn't mean I can't play cards. You took them for all they had. I won more than I lost, but I wouldn't say I cleaned up. Anyway, one night, I'm not the youngest guy at the table anymore. He chuckles, lost in the memory. His name is Carson, and he shows up out of nowhere. He's wearing a gold chain and mirrored sunglasses, trying to pull a total moneymaker on us. But he has suburbs written all over him. You see, he played a ton of online poker, and he figured a real game wouldn't be that much different. So he lost. You would think, but no. He owned every pot. Someone accused him of cheating. He wasn't. I watched him close on the whole time. He just got good cards and knew what to do with them. More importantly, he figured out how everyone else at the table played their hands. But once an accusation is out there, especially in a room full of bruised egos and empty wallets, it doesn't take a lot of convincing. These guys were rough. They jumped him. 5 grown men against 1 kid, Cooper. It was ridiculous. I tried to even his odds by entering the brawl. You saved him. No, Emma, we both got our asses handed to us. You have to remember, I was a skinny kid. Carson wasn't much bigger. I flinched at the visual. Were you badly hurt? Well, it wasn't exactly pretty when they were done. Anyway, Carson and I recuperated in the same hospital. We became friends. And when Carson's parents came to visit him, they visited me too. And when Carson was released, he invited me to come stay with him in Connecticut. He came from a military family. Carson never questioned becoming a Marine. I've never seen a passion like that, or such a desire to serve and be a part of something bigger than himself. I craved the same thing. So when he joined up, I followed suit. Are you still close? He's my best friend. You'll meet him in Vegas. He's also my manager. And I'm excited to meet one of his friends, especially such a close one, and I expect Aiden to tell me more, but he gets quiet again. He smells of cedar and pine, a beautiful man, and I rest my head against the window, trying not to inhale the scent. I hate myself for being attracted to him. It's silly on the surface, but even worse, it's completely disloyal, and that's not who I am. But the more I try to control it, the harder it is. Why do you fight, I ask. It's a quick way to make money. And I don't believe him. There's something else about it, not the fighting exactly, but the number of hours he dedicates to his body. He pushes himself harder and faster than anyone else I've ever met. I suspect it comes back to the same reason he climbs mountains. It isn't to achieve the perfect masculine form, although that is one of the benefits. What would happen if you couldn't work out? I'd probably spontaneously combust. Really? He sucks in a deep breath, turning to me. It's important for me to be the strongest man in the room. And if I'm not, to at least give that man a run for his money. Oh, I don't play offense unless provoked, but I always wanted to be ready. I get it, I think. Emma, my head is aching from all the shrinking you're doing. Can we stop now? I was just curious. Quit digging. I'm not that deep. Oh, Aiden, I think you're wrong there. He's the freaking Grand Canyon of Jeep. I'm not analyzing you. Then what's with all the questions? Trying to get to know you, that's all. No more questions. You're distracting me. He jabs the radio dial and flips it, turning up the volume. It's a sports channel. Do you need to listen to this, I asked. No. I flipped the channel. What the hell are you doing? You don't mess with a man's music, Cooper. You weren't listening to the music anyway. The rules of the road state that if we're not talking, then we should be singing. Is that a fact? It is. He gestures to the radio, then by all means. I find a classic rock station, the familiar twang of the sweet guitar riff spells forth. This is my jam. Your jam? Let's get past the fact that you use that word. But seriously, Bruce Springsteen is your jam? What, you don't like Bruce? I'm just surprised that you do, he said. It's one of my all-time favorite playlists, and I start singing. It's out of tune, but who the hell cares? Aiden tilts his head at me, fighting the smile. Don't make me sing this alone. I jab his arm. You know you want to. That's what you're doing? Singing? Because for a minute, I thought it was a cat dying somewhere. I punch him in the arm. Don't move. I shake out my hand after. To my surprise, he turns up the volume and starts singing too. And his voice is deep and rich baritone that's much more suited for the pursuit of rhythm than mine. He stops suddenly, staring at me as if I've grown a third head. Another head. Okay, I'm a crappy singer, I say. But you don't have to look at me all judgy. No, it's not that. What the hell did you just say? Just following along with the lyrics. Repeat the last line, he says. Revved up like a douche? Aiden cracks a smile that morphs into a laugh that transforms into something so loud his bronze face turns red. What's so funny, I demand. Shit, Cooper, I don't think I've ever laughed this hard. You think the boss is singing about douche? Yeah, deuce. The right word is deuce. How can you rev up a deuce? His eyes twinkle with mischief. I don't know. How can you rev up douche? He winces. Never mind. Don't answer that. You make a point. It can't be douche, I concede. Also, what's on his shoulder? Huh? That line, there is a blank on my shoulder. Boner. This time, he's almost gasping for breath. By the time he's done laughing, he wheezes out. Boulder. It's a boulder on his shoulder. No dude, especially not Bruce, is talking about a boner on his shoulder. I'm never going to be able to listen to this song again. He keeps laughing, and I join in because now that I think about it, I've been singing the song wrong all my life. God, how did no one ever correct me? I'm belting out lyrics about feminine hygiene products and boners, for God's sake. Finally, we gain control of ourselves, growing quiet, catching our breath as the miles drift beneath us. Douche, Aiden whispers, piercing the quiet, and we both crack up all over again.